Hello everyone, welcome to Live Interactive English. I'm Mike.
And I'm Karen. Today we are looking at part 1 of A Case of Identity. And it's actually about Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson.
Yes.
And I know that you are a fan of Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, I'm using my imaginary magnifying glass like Sherlock Holmes does to look for clues.
That's right.
Because of course Sherlock Holmes and his trusty
partner,
sidekick, Dr. John Watson, are the heroes and main characters of these very famous stories, which were written about 130 years ago.
130 years ago?
1800s, but they have been entertaining people ever since and have even turned people like Benedict Cumberbatch into a
star.
Household names and big movie stars. Exactly right. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Sherlock Holmes. I've read the books, I've watched the TV shows, seen the movies, I have the DVDs, and I don't have the hat.
Aw, you should get the hat. You would look really good in the hat.
I think it's a little too hot in Taiwan for the hat. But you're right, if there's ever a mystery, I would need the hat and my magnifying glass, but most importantly, I would need the amazing brain and eyes of Sherlock Holmes. That's the best thing about these books, the way he can look at a person and notice little details about their clothes or their face or how they're talking, and he can create all of the truth. He can find all of the mysteries by just observing the world around him. It's really, really interesting.
That's right, and he's definitely a great detective, right? The best, and he's very, very smart. And let's see what we can learn from him today.
Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson were discussing previous cases in their apartment on Baker Street. Suddenly, a visitor, Miss Mary Sutherland, walked through the door with a new case for Holmes to solve. After Mary's father died, Mary's mother married a man by the name of James Windibank, who also happened to be only a few years older than Mary. The three of them lived together, but Mary didn't want to be a burden on her family, so she let her mother and stepfather live off the inheritance that her uncle Ned had left her. Mary supported herself with a humble income that she made from typing letters.
So we're looking at part 1 of A Case of Identity. Ooh, that sounds like an interesting case, don't you think?
It definitely does. A case is sort of like a mystery. Many of the stories of Sherlock Holmes are either a case of or the mystery of, and they give you a little bit of an idea of what this is about. But actually, our title here is even more mysterious, even stranger, A Case of Identity. Just who is a person? That's
right.
kind of the mystery here. So I guess the only thing we can do is read on and try to find out.
All right, sounds like a great idea. Okay, so let me start. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson were discussing previous cases in their apartment on Baker Street. So they were discussing. When you're discussing something, that just means you're talking about something. And we're also looking at this word previous, and that is an adjective. It just means something that happened or existed before someone or something. So for example, in the previous class, we learned about different animals. It just means that in the class that we took before, we learned about different animals,
there you
right?
Go. So it's not a case they're working on now, maybe one from a few months or a few years ago. In the story, you know that Dr. Watson writes down the story of many of the cases. So of course, later on, they're talking about it. This one probably was especially interesting and mysterious. So they're talking about a case, and suddenly it says a visitor, Miss Mary Sutherland, walked through the door with a new case for Holmes to solve. Okay, well, forget that previous case. They have a new case, a new mystery, a new puzzle to solve or to find the answers to. So, what is this woman's story? What's upsetting her?
Well, let's learn about it. After Mary's father died, Mary's mother married a man by the name of James Windibank, who also happened to be only a few years older than Mary. Okay, so Mary's father died, right?
Very sad.
Okay, very sad. So then, wow, so she married somebody, right? That's only a few years older than her.
Oh, okay. So Mary's mother married a younger man.
That's right.
And this new husband, Mary's stepfather, we would say, is just a little bit older than her. That's a little strange, but you know, okay, that happens.
Okay, and the three of them lived together. But Mary didn't want to be a burden on her family. Okay, so she didn't want to be a burden on someone. Burden just means that causing trouble, you know, making people feel, oh no, I have to take care of you. Right. And then, you know, like making things a little more difficult for other people.
Exactly. They didn't want to have to, she didn't want them to have to spend their money taking care of her, a financial burden on her mother and her new stepfather. So she let her mother and stepfather live off the inheritance that her Uncle Ned had left her. All right, so this family actually has a little bit more money coming from Uncle Ned. This might be Mary's father, the man who died, his brother or something. When he died, the Uncle Ned left her some money. This is her inheritance. So basically, Mary has her own money. She doesn't need her mother to spend money to take care of her. That's lucky for her. Mary supported herself with a humble income that she made from typing letters. So she had some money from her Uncle Ned, and Mary also had her own job. She supported herself or took care of herself by this job that she had typing letters for other people. So kind of like a secretary job or something like that. And yes, to support something, well, you can physically support something by lifting it up, by holding it up. If you're helping an old person cross the street, you might hold their arm to support them, to stop them from slipping and falling. We can also use it when you talk about spending your money to pay for another person's life. Your parents will support you when you're young. Young kids don't have money, don't have jobs, so their parents earn money and help to pay for the kids' food and clothes and all that. Here's an example like that. Laura works 2 jobs to support her children. She's not holding her children up. She's using her money to take care of her kids and pay for the things they need. Working
very, very hard because you have to work 2 jobs to support them, right? Okay, but so far from what we learned from Mary's case or Mary's story, I don't really hear a problem here.
No big mystery yet. No.
But I guess we'll have to learn more after the break.
Definitely.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。我们这2天要读的是名侦探夏洛克·福尔摩斯 Sherlock Holmes 的短篇探案故事。那它叫做 A Case of Identity 身份之谜。那么故事一开始啊，福尔摩斯和华生就在这个贝克街的公寓里面讨论之前的案子。突然有一位访客 Miss Mary Sutherland， 就是这位玛丽·萨瑟兰小姐。他带来一件要给福尔摩斯解决的新案子。原来啊，在 Mary 的爸爸过世之后，他妈妈就嫁给一位只比 Mary 大个几岁的年轻男子，名叫 James Windibank。那 Mary 和妈妈还有继父这3个人就住在一起。可是 Mary 不想要成为家人的负担，于是呢，就把 Uncle Ned 留给他的遗产，再留给这个母亲和继父来靠这笔遗产过生活。那他自己就靠打信，就是打字写信这种方式来赚取微薄收入养活自己。好，单字 previous 它是形容词，形容以前的、先前的或是上一次的。那么 support 它是当动词，表示供养、养活或是有资助啊、支持的意思。那这边2个重点，我们进入文法时间。 我们来看第一个重点是 let 跟 allow 的比较。Let 和 allow 都可以用来表示允许让什么什么发生，那么用法有不同哦。Let 是实义动词，那么受词补语要用原形，它的用法就是 let somebody or something 再加原形动词。至于 allow 它是一般动词，那么它的受词补语是要用 to to 加原形动词，所以它的用法就是 allow somebody or something to 加原形动词。举例来说 Let me introduce myself 让我来自我介绍，或是 Please allow me to introduce myself 请容我自我介绍。那第二重点是过去完成式 had 加上过去分词 pp 是用在表达过去某个时间点或某个动作之前就已经完成的经验或动作，那常常搭配过去简单式来使用。那用来只说过去两个动作的先后顺序时，我们会把先发生的动作用过去完成式表达，后发生的动作用过去简单式表达。举例来说 The children had fallen asleep before he got home 在他到家之前，孩子们已经睡着了。那孩子们睡着是先发生的动作，所以用过去完成式 had fallen。那他到家是后发生的动作，所以是用过去简单式 got。那接回到课文中。
Windibank never allowed Mary to go to social events. However, he frequently took business trips. During one such trip, Mary attended a ball and met her eventual fiancé, Hosmer Angel. From then on, the couple continued their romance in secret. When Windibank was home, the couple communicated by writing letters. Curiously, Mr. Angel's letters were always typed, even his name. Soon enough, Angel proposed to Mary, and she accepted. But when their wedding day arrived, Angel had disappeared without a trace.
Welcome back, everyone. So before the break, we're looking at this case. It's called a case of identity, right? And it's about Sherlock Holmes, the great detective. So this girl named Mary, her father had died. But then her mother married someone who was only a few years older than her, right? But she didn't want to be a burden, cause them any trouble. So she kind of supported herself, and she also has a job, right?
That's right. So Mary is a young woman. She's not a girl. She has her own life, but it seems that her new stepfather, this man who has married her mother, not Mary's real father, he won't give her the freedom that you might expect her to have as a young woman with her own money. It says Windibank never allowed Mary to go to social events. So no parties, no dates, no, festivals or anything like that. She kind of had to stay home all the time, and this is her stepfather telling her this. So I'm not sure Mary would be happy about that. But remember, these stories are from more than 100 years ago, and women then didn't have the freedom they would have now. But still, you would expect her to be allowed to go out, maybe to meet a guy, to get married eventually, meet a nice boy, that kind of thing. But no, she had to stay home. However, he, Windibank, frequently took business trips. So he was away a lot on business. Maybe Mary could sneak out and go to a party when he was away. Well, during one such trip, that's what happened. Mary attended a ball and met her eventual fiancé, Hosmer Angel. Wow, so she did get to go out. She went to a ball, which is a big formal party with music and dancing and stuff like that. The kind of place a woman back then might meet a nice boy and eventually get married. And that's what happened. She met her eventual fiancé, a boyfriend. They get engaged. They plan to get married. That's why we call him a fiancé. And his name was Hosmer Angel. Interesting name.
What
and a very fine young man.
That's right.
Yes,
okay, let's see what happens next. From then on, the couple continued their romance in secret. Ooh, so continue their romance, their love in secret means they didn't want anybody to know about their romance. When Windibank was home, the couple communicated by writing letters. Oh, so they didn't want Windibank, the stepfather, to find out. Now we're looking at this word here, communicate, and that is a verb. To communicate basically just means to exchange your words, feelings or emotions or information, right? So talking to people, that's to communicate. So for example, we usually communicate by text messages or phone calls.
Okay, you can communicate with your voice, with a text message, by writing a letter, even by waving to someone. That's communicating as well, too. All right, so they have to have this secret love affair, basically. Curiously, we read, Mr. Angel's letters were always typed, even his name. Okay, so if they're writing love letters, you wouldn't expect him to type the letters. That's like sending someone a love email. It's not really romantic.
Especially a long time ago, right?
Yeah, you would expect them to write by hand with a pen or something, right? Love letters should be written by hand, not typed on a computer, a typewriter, or something like that. So that's a little unusual. And even his name. Generally, if you type a letter, you would still sign it with pen at the bottom to show that, you know, this is from me. So this is a little strange. Soon enough, Angel proposed to Mary. He asked Mary to marry him, and she accepted. She said, oh, I will, I do, I will be Mrs. Angel. I'm so happy. So this is exciting. Mary will get married, and of course, she'll also move out of the house, probably to live with her new husband. But when the wedding day arrived, Angel had disappeared without a trace.
Disappeared?
This is terrible. So this is something that's going to break Mary's heart. She's there probably in her white gown with her flowers at the church. And Mr. Angel is not there. They can't find him anywhere. It's like he's poof. He's just vanished or disappeared. When something disappears, it was there. You could see it, and then all of a sudden, it's not. It might be because of magic. It might be just because someone took it away when you weren't watching. But really, you can't explain where that thing was, at least not now. It was there, and now it's gone. Of course, if something disappears because there's a magic trick, that's normal. But if it's a person, that's very strange and maybe a big problem.
On your wedding day.
Especially if it's your husband or wife that you're about to marry on your wedding day.
But I wonder what happened. I mean, did he just decide not to marry Mary?
I have no idea, but I think Sherlock Holmes might have an idea. But before we disappear, let's look at our example sentence. The sun disappears at night and the stars appear. Of course, the sun doesn't disappear. It goes behind the earth. But anyway, that's science. We'll talk about that another day. But tomorrow, we'll be back to find out more about a case of identity. And also, hopefully, find out where did Hosmer Angel go?
That's right.
So strange.
We'll see you guys next time.
Maybe.
这位年轻的继父 Windibank 从来都不准 Mary 去参加社交活动，不过他自己却常常出差。那有一次呢 ，Mary 就趁机参加了一场舞会，遇到后来的未婚夫 Hosmer Angel。那从那时起，他们就偷偷的谈恋爱啊。然后 Windibank 在家的时候，这对情侣就会用写信的方式联络。可是奇怪的是 ，Hosmer Angel 写的信总是用打字的，连他的名字也是不是亲笔签名哦。那很快的 Hosmer Angel 就向 Mary 求婚，他也接受了。可是到了婚礼这一天，新郎却消失得无影无踪。好，文中的 fiance 它是指这个未婚夫。那么 Mike 老师他这时候有提到 engaged。engaged 就是形容订婚的，我们可以用 be engaged to somebody 来表达与某人订婚。好，那么单字 communicate 它是动词，它有联系、沟通或是传递的意思。disappear 则是指消失、失踪。我们在后面加上名词字尾 ance 就会得到 disappearance。那这个名词就表示消失或是失踪。好，那以上是今天的讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson were discussing previous cases in their apartment on Baker Street. Suddenly, a visitor, Miss Mary Sutherland, walked through the door with a new case for Holmes to solve. After Mary's father died, Mary's mother married a man by the name of James Windibank, who also happened to be only a few years older than Mary. The three of them lived together, but Mary didn't want to be a burden on her family, so she let her mother and stepfather live off the inheritance that her uncle Ned had left her. Mary supported herself with a humble income that she made from typing letters. Windibank never allowed Mary to go to social events. However, he frequently took business trips. During one such trip, Mary attended a ball and met her eventual fiancé, Hosmer Angel. From then on, the couple continued their romance in secret. When Windibank was home, the couple communicated by writing letters. Curiously, Mr. Angel's letters were always typed, even his name. Soon enough, Angel proposed to Mary, and she accepted. But when their wedding day arrived, Angel had disappeared without a trace.
Hello everybody and welcome. Today we are taking a trip to Shenkeng Old Street. Now when you think of Shenkeng Old Street, you're probably going to think of tofu. Now when somebody from the US thinks of tofu, we think, ew, tofu. That's just like a replacement for meat that has no flavor. In fact, that is exactly what my dad thought before I took him to Shenkeng Old Street. He went there and realized, wow, tofu could be made in so many ways and it's so delicious. So if you have a friend who's a foreigner or from the US and you want to change their mind about tofu, I suggest taking them to Shenkeng Old Street. All right, let's get into the lesson.
Are you looking for a place to spend time with friends and family? Shenkeng Old Street is a great choice. Once you visit, you will see classic brick buildings. Shenkeng is known all over Taiwan for its great famous tofu. There are a lot of tofu restaurants and vendors on the street. The tofu made in Shenkeng has a special burned flavor. You can find grilled stinky tofu, steamed stinky tofu, and even tofu ice cream. If you don't like tofu, you can try other snacks too, like taro balls and peanut candy. Have some grass jelly tea if you feel hot and thirsty. After enjoying all the wonderful food, check out a traditional Taiwanese grocery store. The toys and candy there will make you feel like a kid again.
So another thing that my dad was really surprised about was having the peanut ice cream. So for us, when we think about desserts, we think about cakes, we think about pies, and when we think of ice cream, we're not thinking about putting something like a nut in there. Or you often will use beans and make those sweet. For us, we think that's very strange. But once you try it, peanut ice cream was amazing. All right, that's all we have time for today. We will see you next time.